Hi, you guys, and welcome back to the podcast.
We are the Carwells.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Sarah, and we are, as you know, Airbnb interior designers and investors. Well, welcome back, everyone, to our show. Today, we have Steven and Myka from the Live, Let, Thrive podcast. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
What up? What up?
Well, thank you so much for joining us. For our listeners, if you guys are OG listeners, you know that this is really, their podcast specifically is really where we kind of launched, and they were a very big help to that 3 years ago. And now we have them on our channel, so we're super excited. It's kind of a full circle moment for us. So without further ado, let's get into it. As always, we start each episode with a Airbnb horror story, and I'm sure these guys have no shortage of Airbnb horror stories. So I'll let you guys break the ice with a story for our listeners.
I've told 2 on this show already. Yeah, I let Myka go. I've already told 2 on this show.
Me? Okay. I guess we'll talk about my very first short-term rental. We started in a condo in this HOA building, and everything was good to go at first. We were cool. They were cool running it. And then, like, one of the HOA managers found out another guy who was doing short-term rentals out of the same, HOA complex. He ended up running he was running a prostitution ring out of it. Now, I don't know if he knew about it, but basically he was renting it to this one guy. Now, he doesn't know if he was renting it to this guy and knew what he was doing, but he was basically running prostitutes in and out. I mean, it had a pretty good operation, but it got blown up after they were doing stuff in the swimming pool. And the swimming pool is like in the middle of the complex. People on the, on the balconies can look down. So they found out he was running a prostitution ring, and they kind of shut us down. So that's when I got into corporate rentals. But yeah, that was my very first short-term rental, and that was our horror story that ended up making us switch our whole business model.
That would be like a bonus, right? No pun intended, to have a view of the pool, and that's like a nightly, entertainment. I don't know why. I don't know why people complain.
If you have a camera, I mean, yeah, you can make some money off of it too. But
I see nothing but opportunity.
Very entrepreneurial mindset, Sarah.
So true. So after that happened, you switched immediately into multifamily. You were like, never again.
Well, no. We had to switch that condo into we did corporate rentals, traveling nurses, and it was perfect for it because it was a 1-bed, 1-bath. It was like 700 square feet. So we ended up we actually held it for 3 years, and then at the very end, we took a lot of our profits, put it back into fix it up. Then we did a 1031 exchange, and we ended up getting a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, full blown house from that condo. So it helped us out in the long run.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
Well, at least yours has a happy ending at the end of it.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Always got to look
no
the
pun
positive
intended.
outcome.
Tell that other host to get his business in line, man. Tighten up your ship.
Yeah, happy endings, man. Yeah, it was a happy ending. Not the Deshaun Watson type, but it was a happy ending.
Oh, Lord.
We really do see it all in this industry. Holy cow.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, we do.
So for our listeners who are unfamiliar with who you guys are and what you guys do, why don't you give like a little, elevator pitch of your experience in short-term rentals?
So we are Live, Let, Thrive, podcast about Airbnb life and all that entails. And so we've been doing this podcast for like going on 6 years. Is it 6 years already? 6 or 7?
17, about 16. Yeah.
Wow,
6
it's
years.
been a while. Yeah. So what happened? How me and Myka met? He came to one of I did like a Bigger Pockets meetup, but it was more like investing, like a stock meetup. And he came by. He started talking about his weed stocks and stuff like that. And so, and then he told me about how he's renting rooms out of his house and making a buttload of money. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Oh, do an Airbnb." I was like, "Oh, damn! I always heard, I stay at Airbnbs. I always wanted to do that." And he showed me about it. I said, and I had, previous history in podcast, and so I went ahead and said, "Hey, we should do a podcast." And Myka, oh, okay, I don't even know this guy, and he's asking me to do a podcast. But at the time, there was really, I think Jasper was the only one that had one about short-term rentals, and so I was like, "Well, there's not a lot out there. We can be one." And that's how it started. I didn't even have an Airbnb yet. Myka told all his crazy stories about about like someone staying there and washing the same shirt over and over every single day, going to work. And I don't know, funny stories like that. And then I finally I jumped into short term rentals myself because I said, well, if I have a show, I'm gonna have to have something to talk about. So and then I got into the game. And then our show's, been going for a while. We've interviewed some big wigs in the industry, and then you hopped on the show, and then you got me into the arbitrage game, and so yeah, we're going strong there. That's the starting the history of Live Let Thrive.
That's incredible. Yeah, you guys have come a long way. I mean, 6 years is no short amount of time to be consistent about something.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, consistency is where it is, man. It like I remember when Steve asked me, I was like, "We ain't starting no podcast for what?" And then like, yeah, he was right. And then I started like really looking around because I wanted to get better at short term rentals, and he was right. There was only actually two podcasts out. It was Get Paid for Your Pad and Shampoo and Booze, and that's the Shampoo and Booze podcast is where I learned a lot of the stuff that I learned. And then they stopped, so I was like, I had to take that guy up on his offer. So I was like, called Steve. I'm like, let's just do it. Let's just record an episode. So we went over to his house and he had these pantyhose set up on an iron hanger to for the pop filter. So we were recording his little first front bedroom. And I was like, what the hell? So we did it, and then we eventually upgraded. But yeah, it took 6 years, but consistency is key.
Mhm.
Consistency is better than perfection. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
I'm super impressed that you've been keeping this up for 6 years. We haven't even been doing it for a year, and getting a episode up every week is so hard. It takes a lot more work than I think people really
Yeah.
understand. And it's cool that you guys got into it so early, because I feel like podcasts started becoming popular within the past couple of years, like especially during COVID. People were at home and they got sick of watching the same show over and over again on Netflix, and so people started really getting into podcasts and podcasting because they couldn't talk to anybody else, so they were just talking to their mic. And so you guys got into it way before it was really super popular. Smart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I wanted to do it so I could just have an excuse to pick Michael's brain every single day about about Airbnb, and then we started interviewing some people. We had this guy on that was the number one most wished for Airbnb in the world at the time, the Treehouse guy, Peter Bayhuth,
Peter
and we
Bates.
had him on our
Mm-hmm.
show. And then it was so funny because I was like, I don't know, episode 6 or 7, and he didn't even know we weren't. He thought, oh, these guys do a podcast. It must be a big deal. No, we just started our podcast, and he's like, and he just says, hey, is it cool if I say some negative things about Airbnb? I was like, oh, okay. And he just went scorched earth on Airbnb his whole episode. I mean, we're like, oh crap, we didn't know what to say. Oh shit, sorry about your experience. But Airbnb pretty much just pimped him out, and we know that they can be like that sometimes. So we saw the ugly side of Airbnb.
There
Yeah.
is that
There
side.
yeah, there is that side. Once you get into it, you find it for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's good that he tells that, because we try to get people to talk about the bad sides, because people who are getting into it need to know that it's not all sunshine and rainbows when you're getting into
I'm not a fan of them, to be honest with you. But yeah.
it.
You've been in it long enough, it's hard to be a fan of them, right?
Yeah, I'm not a fan, but that's why I'm kind of like switching my portfolio for direct and insurance clients because yeah, Airbnb's it's Airbnb, so you got to deal with certain things. So
Yeah. So when you say you're going direct, are you using Boostly for their direct website?
yep, straight up. I love shout out to Mark Simpson. Yes, I'm using Boostly. I got that all plugged in, and we've gotten a few direct, and most of them have been repeat guests, so they do like the flexibility of being able to repeat directly and get the 10% off. By the way, quick tip: if you want to get people to book with you directly, automatically up the price of your Airbnbs. If you have like Hostfully, up that multiplier like 10-15%, so your direct booking price always shows as cheaper.
Brilliant. Yeah, we need to get on that direct booking game. We had Mark on the podcast maybe a month ago now. Um, one incredible dude,
Hmm.
like just good people all the way
Energy.
around, which like is an additional perk, right?
Mm.
But he's just got a really large vision. Like we really kind of drilled him with some hard questions, and you can tell that he's thought his vision all the way through.
Mm.
And it definitely shows in his product. So we will be hopping on that train very soon as well.
Yeah, it's really nice to have somebody who's like helpful in setting it up too, because I feel like they don't have the time or know how to, like, it's a big process. Like, it's a big step to get all of that set up. And so to have somebody that you can hire that's like that's what they do fully, it makes it so much easier for hosts.
Now, I will say this: I love Mark, I love Boostly, and I love our website. But nothing is totally 100% passive, right? In anything, you say, "Oh, real estate's passive." Oh, just throw a long term. Nothing's passive. You still got to work at it, right? And so, once you get your website from Boostly and you work with them and build it and all that, stay on it. Go check it every single day and make sure everything's good because stuff happens and he's got VAs working for him, but they are quick to fix it and make it look pretty again. So but you just got to just stay on it. Nothing's passive.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good advice. And it's good to hear that their customer service is great too. That's really all you can ask
Oh
for is
yeah.
that you've got people who have your back.
So what are we talking about today, ladies?
Yes. So, first question on the list is we want an update on y'all's portfolio. Both of you guys separately are doing things outside of this together, right? So, we want just kind of another elevator pitch on where you guys are at in your investing journey.
Okay, you wanna go first, Micah?
Okay, so in my STR portfolio, I own three. I have one under rehab, which I might not be turned into a short term rental because it's too far in the hood. And then I have I arbitrage five, and then I rent out like 400 plus timeshares through Airbnb using the timeshare method. And though that's my whole portfolio, and then I'm trying to buy six more properties right now. I'm trying to buy six properties, so that's where I'm at. Hopefully, I can buy those six next year. We'll see.
And where are all of these located?
My five that I arbitrage are in Dallas. I just shut down five in Houston because Houston's just Houston oversaturated. And then I have five in Dallas. Then I own all my houses are in Arkansas that I own, and I'm gonna be buying in Texas though. I'm trying to buy in Texas, really the Plano area.
Ooh, very nice. Plano has been, I mean, since Emily and I moved down there, and obviously now we're back in Michigan, but when we moved down, Plano was exploding, right? And it's still exploding. Like, that's not even close to being done. So I think that that's brilliant. I'm sure the appreciation there is going to be insane.
Exactly, that's what I'm looking at. So exactly.
And what about you, Steven?
So you're the big reason we got started in the management game. So Argest Rentals with my partner Federico, ARGEST Rentals.com. So what happened, and I've told this story before, so I'll keep it short, So um, Emily and Sarah had another management company at the time. Whatever. Things happened. They weren't doing so well, and me and Federico just started with our arbitrages, and they asked us to manage for them because they're not in town. And so we said, "Oh, really? Okay, I guess I guess we could do that." And so we started managing their units, and after that, we you gave us more units, and then more units, and then your friends hit us up and said, hey, can you manage for us too? And they gave us units, and it's just been growing and growing, and we've gotten more arbitrages for ourselves. So we're up to around 70 units with a mix of arbitrages, mostly management, but we have arbitrages too, and we've been able to buy two properties with our business, the money we've been making through our business, and we're in the process of buying a third property through our business. So that's where we're at right now.
That's
That's amazing.
awesome.
It's been incredible to just hearing this again. I mean, we kind of keep tabs on y'all's portfolios, right? Because we care. But it's just incredible to watch how much has changed over the last 3 years. Like how it just really, you build that foundation and it just like explodes in front of you. So that's encouraging. Congrats,
Oh,
guys.
thank you. It's like, yeah, the snowball
Yeah,
effect, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly what it
that's
is.
for sure. It's like once you start it, you're like, oh God, hang on. Here
And
we go.
it hasn't been easy. I mean, every step of the way, every what's it called, landmark, or every mark that you hit, like 20 10 units, 20 units, 30 units, 50 units, 60 units, 70, you have to restructure the whole thing because it doesn't work the same as what you had in place before. You have to hire another VA, train them, get them, get them look, we have someone looking for places now, we have someone doing the leases now, we have for longer stays, we have people looking for travel nurses. We have, of course, the Airbnb help, the short-term rental help. We have different sites. I mean, it just keeps growing. It turns into this beast. So it's every step of the way you got to keep improving and keep changing it up, because you can't just stay stagnant.
Yeah.
Facts.
Micah, you obviously have like multifamily, short-term rentals, timeshares that you talked about. Can you talk about why you diversified that portfolio so much and why that was like important for you to do that?
What do you mean, the timeshare side or this the whole portfolio?
Like why you have it in so many different areas? Like why you do timeshares and multifamily and you're doing corporate rentals? Is there a reason why you decided to do so many different things instead of just focusing down in one niche?
Yeah. So the timeshare thing that came about by luck, and then we just kind of took off with it. That was like we were in Vegas. Me and my wife were in Vegas, and we just had a timeshare. And my wife just asked, "I wonder if we could make money on Airbnb." And I posted one, and I just did it just to post it, and then got booked immediately. And then I was like, we just started duplicating all the listings in the timeshares, and that's how that blew up. And then as far as my ownership side, when I bought a house when I was 19 through this kitty condo program. And when I moved to Texas, it was just sitting vacant. My mom lived there for a while when she moved back to Arkansas. And then that I seen the cash flow on it, and I was like, geez, man, these places that you own, they're the overhead's really, really low. And then I was like, I got to really try to get some more properties that I own. So after that, when I did a burr on a property in Arkansas, that was the light switch moment. I'm like, holy shit, I just got a property for $4,000 and it probably brings me 5,000. I'm like, this is infinite cash on cash return because I'm refinancing all my money back. I'm like, damn, that was the light switch. I was like, okay, I need to try to do as many burrs as possible. And then multifamily, I'm not really in multifamily. I just do it on the arbitrage side. And then I kind of wanted to diversify away from Airbnb because I think short-term rentals aren't saturated, but Airbnb is getting saturated. So I wanted to pull out of that. And let's just be honest, the big money in short-term rentals, it's in insurance and it's in government contracts. So I'm like, and one thing I learned from my partner, Noble, he goes, government contracts can't pay out through Airbnb. So the big money ain't coming through there if you want the big money. So I was like, oh shit. So my bad. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on
You
it.
can swear here.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay. So I was like, oh shit. And that was the light bulb moment too. I'm like, okay, let me diversify off. I'm trying to get off Airbnb and just be a direct consult. So I have a VA every day. He's reaching out to insurance companies, uploading us everywhere to all the insurance companies. So that's really my big reason. It's my big goal is to get out of arbitrage, own everything, and work with insurance companies and hopefully get into government contracting.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say get out of arbitrage because I feel like, at least in our experience, everyone who gets into arbitrage, it like holds a place in the beginning of their foundation and then they transition out of it. And I know I see people online all the time that are like they've made their money in arbitrage, they're growing their arbitrage, like that's what they want to do, which is interesting to me because I'm like, man, the second I flipped over to ownership, I'm like, I won't go back. Like I will not go back. So I love to hear that you've kind of got the same mentality towards it.
Yeah, yeah, it's a bug because once you see like the cash on cash return, and then you get an equity in the long run, I'm like, you can't beat it. But I tell people if you're going to get in the short term rental space, it's about your goals. What's your singular goal? If you want to get off your 9 to 5, arbitrage the hell out of it until you get the hell out of there. But it's just having a singular focus. Once you know your goal, singular focus, go for it, attack it.
Yeah. I have kind of a follow up question to that. I saw that you and your wife came to Detroit not too long ago, right? And
Yep.
we are heavily, like currently house hunting for a place in Detroit for a couple of reasons, right? It's like we're in Michigan and right now we're living in every Airbnb that we're redoing. So we're like constantly in a construction zone. It'd be nice to have like a home base to go to on the weekends. But also all of our properties are like middle of nowhere lake houses. So like
Mm-hmm.
although I do enjoy being out in the sticks, I also like love being in the city and like having good food and access to a ton of stuff. So we're considering investing there, but I want to hear your overall opinion of investing in Detroit specifically.
Uh, okay, this is how. So my family has a very strong connection with Detroit. A lot of my families in the '80s they went up to Detroit and worked for GM and all that stuff. So when I went there, it was my first time going there. Um, One thing I loved is you can get very very cheap houses, very cheap land. The reason why I didn't choose to invest in it myself was because it lacked appreciation, right? So I'm in a point in my business where I want cash flow and appreciation. And if it can't give me that, I'm not really comfortable going to a new market if it can't give me that, right? So that was my only thing with Detroit. Other than that, the city, freaking loved it. I'm like, it kind of has its has its good areas, then it kind of has its rough areas. But the rough areas was cool because I ain't gonna lie, when I go to a new city, I like to go to the hood just to check it out. So I went and there was a dispensary in the middle of the hood, it wasn't professional like the other dispensaries I had ever went to. Like There and they're listening to trap music, hey man, what you want? What, like, come up to you, shake your hand. I'm like, damn, this is like a real trap house, legal trap house. But I was like, I love the culture of Detroit, but yeah, that was the reason I didn't touch it, because it didn't have the cash flow and appreciation. And the only time I'll risk that, like I'll say I'll risk the appreciation, is if it's in a market that I'm very, very familiar with and have boots on the ground.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's encouraging to hear because it's definitely a big pull to us going there, as we've got so many connections there that would help us bring properties to life if we ever decided to scale. But speaking of on the dispensary front, you should have seen the dispensaries in 2020 when COVID happened. It was like weed became legal in early 2019 here in Michigan. And then you've got a year to develop regulation, right? So the beginning of
Mhm.
2020 is when dispensaries could actually open, but then everything got shut down March of 2020. And so there was like maybe 6 or 7 dispensaries in Detroit that like got up and running and were ready from January until March. And then nothing else could happen for months afterwards. So those few dispensaries, like you'd go to Detroit and you'd pull up and there would be like a line around the door just waiting. And I'm like, these
Hey,
people are just making boatloads of cash just, by chance them being in this circumstance. So it was funny for a minute.
one other thing about Detroit, I noticed like all the restaurants closed down super early. That was one thing I didn't like. So if you're gonna be getting the munchies, man, you might want to pick up your stash a little early, because they're gonna shut it down at night. So
Oh,
that was
that would
one
be
thing I'd throw out
torture.
there.
Yeah, yeah, and they even shut down earlier in the winter. It's like Michigan. It's like once the sun goes down, everybody's done. They're like nobody's
I
on
know.
inside
Yeah,
now.
everybody has their winter hours. There'll be like a sign for months beforehand. They're like, winter's starting this day, and we are shutting down early starting from this day going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, but Detroit's wild. I'm excited. I'm super excited. I think it'd be fun to live in Detroit. I'm excited to like hold a property for a year and just have like a slower project, but I think you'll catch us there sooner than later. I'm trying to get one more property so I can take advantage of that bonus depreciation at 100% as much as I possibly can before next
Ooh.
year. So we're gonna push it.
Yeah, Detroit has a lot going on too.
Yeah, it's had a comeback in the last few years. Like I remember, it went through this big slump and everybody's like Detroit's bankrupt and everybody avoided it and all of a sudden you come back now and you're like she's back.
So real
Hmm.
quick, can you go over that the bonus depreciation after you have how many properties?
Well, I mean, you get bonus depreciation on any of your investment properties, but this year, 2022 is the last year that it's at 100%. So right now you can write off 100% of your bonus depreciation in year 1, whereas next year in 2023 it goes down to 80%, then 60%, then 40%, and then in 2026, right now, it's not going to be a thing unless they change legislation. So a ton of investors are pushing their money into real estate right now. So this last quarter of the year is going to be insane.
Nice, nice.
Facts.
Yeah. So, Emily, I will let you take the next question.
Yeah, so you guys obviously have been in the STR space for a while and you talk to people all the time who are in the space and have been in the space for a while. So, over the past 2 years, at least, I've noticed that there's been a lot of change in Airbnb and short term rentals. Can you guys speak to that and kind of like how you've felt the changes in like Airbnb specifically? Mike, I know you mentioned Airbnb and trying to go direct and stuff like that. So, can you guys talk about the changes that you've seen over the past few years and kind of where you see it going?
So the changes in general, like
Yeah, just like changes in how people are running, what things are prioritizing. Like Airbnb changes just made like a major change in May, right? And that's kind of affected people's businesses. So can you talk about how
oh, okay.
you've seen it change over the years that you've been in it?
Yeah, I guess I saw this question on the email you sent us, and I was thinking more of like in the past couple of years, so many people have gotten into it, because it's the what's it called, ease of entrance or what? I don't know what the
Low
term is.
barrier of entry.
There you go. That yeah, not the porno version. That's it. Um, the so what I've seen is everybody's getting into it because it is easy to get into because the arbitrage thing blew up, right? And even it's funny because even like in the past couple years, older people that at my work that never even heard of Airbnb a couple years ago started asking me, hey, I hear you do Airbnbs. I hear this thing that you can rent a place and then put it back, and furnish it and put it online and make money, and you can make like $1,000 a month. I was like, yeah, it's not that simple, but that's kind of what it's kind of called arbitrage. So that thing has exploded, which has led to like places like Houston and parts of Dallas is the oversaturation, and so that was a big change. A big change is everybody and their mama started getting Airbnbs, and then this is coming out of COVID, and so that's when COVID hit. Of course, they shut down everything and they canceled everybody's Airbnb bookings. But after that, it started coming back pretty strong. People were making good money, because people wanted to travel again, and they were staying at Airbnbs instead of crowded hotels. And so after that, everybody started trying to get into the game. Oversaturation, party houses, people didn't know what to do. Then regulations started hitting, big time, and started shutting. Bans started happening, and then people started hopping out. So it's been the last couple of years have been pretty crazy, and so I guess that's the part I was thinking about is the oversaturation, people hopping into it, not knowing what they're doing, and then now those people are hopping out because they lost their asses in it, and so the professional operators, I guess, like me, Myka, and our friends, the circle, y'all also, and that we run with, they as long as you're doing everything correctly, utilizing the best softwares out there, the pricing tools and all that, you'll be okay. Because like I said, a lot of people are hopping out of the game now. As far as how Airbnb has changed, it's just man, that's the main thing I see. Everybody try to do it because it's so easy to start one. You have the app on your phone, and in 10 steps you got an Airbnb, right? And then
Mhm.
and I mean, we can go into the inflation, how the inflation impacted Airbnb, and the rents have been skyrocketing in the last 2 years too, and they're finally starting to cool down a little bit. So that really impacted Airbnbs as well, because yeah, you can't really make money if you're renting a place for 2,000 a month and making $1,800 a month on Airbnb, right? So that it just that kind of I don't know, I'm rambling on here, but that kind of is kicking a lot of people out of the game too. But those are finally starting to cool off a little bit. Inflation is it slowed down travel a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess, and long story short, the professional operators that are doing it right and hanging in there are gonna really reap the benefits coming 2023.
Yeah. There's something in there too, like just being familiar with the DFW market, or that's aside from Michigan, the market that we're by far most familiar with. I remember in 2020 when like I had went from 1 to 4 and then all of a sudden the world collapsed, right? And all of mine are in downtown Dallas and there's like no one traveling. So fun. Such a good call. But just hanging on, like you're when you mention like professional operators and really being ready to weather the storm. I don't know that I was ready to weather the storm, but I was so stubborn at that point that I was like, these are going to stay running, like come hell or high water, because I want to see what's on the other side. And I really
Mm,
only got like 2 or 3 months exposure of what it was like pre COVID to like base that decision to be stubborn off of.
mm-hmm,
But I remember after COVID started lightening up and I was like paying attention to the number of Airbnbs in Dallas and Fort Worth like right when mine were going live, and then the number that was left after about 6 months of COVID. And that number was just like 50% of what it was before. And so I was like, man, like we went through this period of like making a ton of money immediately following just because the competition level was so much lower than it was pre COVID. And now,
mm-hmm,
like watching Dallas talk about adding in a bunch of regulation again, I'm sure it's because it's like back to even higher numbers than pre-COVID, because people, during COVID were staring at their phones and they were watching and learning how to do this, and now it's just like everyone
mm-hmm.
came flooding in. And so Houston and Dallas especially, I mean, I've been waiting for this day to come where people are like, enough is enough. Like we
It's your fault, Sarah. You're telling everybody how to do
I
it.
know. I play part of that role.
Yeah, well, now even like apartment complexes, if you come to them and ask and you use the word Airbnb, they'll like push you out the door.
Hmm.
They're like, no, absolutely not. We don't allow that. And like, I've noticed that apartment complexes are even getting like sick of it. And so I think that if you're not running it correctly, they're just going to start going down. Like the bad hosts are going to have to get
Yeah.
kicked out.
Yeah, it is funny because Sean Rakidzic.
Mhm.
Yeah, he was on our show the other day, and he had mentioned something. crazy because he's saying that now they're having a hard time filling up these giant apartment complexes and sky rises in Dallas. So he's scooping up a lot of units right now, air arbitrage, and they're cool with him doing Airbnb or short term rental. It just matters because last year I mean, all the places were full and they were charging the top of the market rent, and they're like, "Hey, go away, you Airbnbers." Now they're like, "Okay, we'll listen to this corporate thing that you're talking." So it goes, it ebbs and flows.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how that shifts. I mean, same thing with the property in Fort Worth that Glenn was the owner of. It was like when when we were in COVID and he was desperate for tenants, he's like, "Please, like take the entire apartment complex like it's yours." And then we have a year and a half lease, and then in that year and a half, all of a sudden the market's booming, and he's like, "Get out."
It's thanks a lot. Yeah, I don't want to say.
And even what you guys are saying though, that goes back to like that control factor that I like when you depend upon somebody with a lease and all this other stuff. Like I love the way Sean does it because Sean has everything backed by a lawyer. So if you come to him with BS, you can call his lawyer. But like just that control factor, you own your own house, you can control that. Because eventually I do eventually want to get into multifamily, to where I can run that control and then have long terms with the short terms, and have the short terms in more desirable locations in the building. But yeah, and that's another thing of what's changed is people, like if lease renewals come up, and let's say management changed before that lease renewal come up, they're like, we don't want to renew the contract. I've been in that situation before. So certain things that have changed, there's always an answer to it, right? So if lease renewals come up and you can't renew it, you need an ironclad lease in there that says, hey, you still have the right to operate your business if you renew or whatever. You just got to have an ironclad lease. So everything that comes up, you just have to be ready to pivot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's why arbitrage has such like a short lifespan in a lot of people's journey, is because they'll run into those issues and they're like, I'm sick of having another hand in the pot,
Mhm.
and they just move on to something else. Like they made their cash flow and then they go and purchase. And I think that's why I ended up avoiding doing arbitrage and waited until I could purchase, because I watched Sarah go through that and I was like, I don't know if I want to have to deal with that like extra person that I have to answer to for my business.
Yeah.
I'm like that. I don't either.
That extra
But
person has never been a good time.
but by doing arbitrage, Sarah was able to find the best movers that could move out a house in like 30 minutes, right?
I've been through it,
For
y'all.
free, for free.
Yeah, it's so true. I got completely robbed.
Sheesh.
It's
I
true.
know.
Man.
I know. It's like honestly, I really thought, well, up until we got our money back this week from getting that 35 grand taken out of our account, I was like, there is never going to be another scenario that's going to top getting completely robbed in one of my units. And then on Friday, when we saw that 35 grand leave our account. So for our listeners, if you aren't following us on socials, we had $35,000 fraudulently wired out of our bank account on Friday. And of course, the bank wasn't open until Tuesday because it's a holiday weekend. We do all this research. We find out that like over 50% of wire fraud never gets repaid. And I'm like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Like, there goes that money. Like, I'm never going to see it again. I'm like on socials, I'm screaming about it. I'm like, Texas Capital, for the love of God, please give me my money back. We have a happy-ish ending to the story right now. I think we're getting that money back. The bank has reassured us, um,
Let's
but with all
go.
with all that being said, I was like, there's never gonna be a situation that's gonna top that like original robbery. And when that 35 left my account, I was like, here it is. Here it is.
Damn, here it is.
You got to stop talking so much, Sarah.
You did teach everybody an important lesson about that. I mean, like the smaller banks are great for like loans and interest rates and stuff like that, but I guess you want to keep your money into a big like Chase or something like that because they have 24/7 fraud, prevention.
Well, I think honestly, the biggest. Now we're kind of going on a tangent about it, but for our listeners, if you want to be safe, honestly, I had no idea that this kind of fraud happens all the time, specifically with real estate. And so, what it sounds like is the most common type of wire fraud happens when you're putting the first initial down payment and closing costs on a new home. And you'll either, like, I had literally hundreds of people tell me their stories on social where they didn't get their money back and why they didn't get it back. And so a lot of times it's like you get a spam call and somebody like poses as your lending company and says like, hey, instead of taking the money out tomorrow morning, we're going to take it out this evening, and they'll give you some excuse and you will give them your information thinking it's your lender. And then you like find out the next day that all your money's gone, it wasn't your lender, so on and so forth. Or they'll do it with an email, where I had like a bunch of people say that somebody created an email that's like one letter off from their point of contact at the lending company asking for all the information for the wire that's supposed to happen the next morning. Our saving grace was that none of that happened. They had just hacked into our devices, and like I guess the bank, I'm not positive, but I think the bank missed a step or two where they didn't like call us to verify, and so that left the bank liable. But a lot of times it's like you're left liable because you gave these people your information. And so the bank's like, that's not our
Mm.
fault. Like there's no way
Yeah.
that we can prevent, you from telling someone your
Yeah.
information and us crossing our T's and dotting our I's. And so ultimately, it sounds like the best solution in a case scenario like this, or any time that you're going to put a down payment on the house, is that whatever bank account that down payment is coming out of, like have a savings account with that same bank and have all of your money in that savings account except for the amount that you're um, transferring over for the down payment and closing costs. And then when that wire happens, you better be 1000% absolutely certain that you're sending it to the person that you think you're sending it to.
Ooh,
But it like at least
scary.
like silos that amount of money so they can't access all the rest of your money. So it was
Yeah, that's interesting that they're saying that they're getting phone calls asking for information because, like, I guess if you don't know, you wouldn't know not to give your information. But, like, I literally just went through this process and I had to call the title company and ask them for their information to wire the money over. Nobody asked me for any of my own personal
right.
information because all of that happened through the broker and stuff. So, for anybody listening, they should not be asking you for your information. They should already have your information. Don't ever give them that stuff. You should be asking for theirs because you're the one wiring the money
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
Unless it's a Nigerian prince that needs help getting to his inheritance, then you can send him
Yeah.
some money.
If you're feeling
Yeah.
generous.
He really needs the help.
It's so true. Yeah, it was super terrifying, but I mean, it was a happy ending, and we closed on the house that I've been working towards for like 2 months now this week. So it's been
Is
a happy ending.
is this the
Congrats.
record for saying happy ending on this show? Like it's probably we're at 30
Yes.
now. That's
Yes,
good.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I
we've
like
got
happy
things to
endings
celebrate over here.
I'll put a little counter up when I'm editing. A little counter, a happy
with a
ending
little
counter.
running Deshaun Watson.
Okay, so I've got another question for you guys. Are you adding new markets? Like, especially with y'all being located in Texas and we're watching Houston and Dallas and Austin just get wildly oversaturated. I know, Micah, you mentioned you're now thinking about investing in Texas instead of in Arkansas, Plano specifically for that appreciation. But aside from Plano, I mean, are there any other markets that you guys are looking at pushing into?
In the future, I will be going to vacation rental markets. Right now, I'm not. I'm trying to get 6 houses in Texas, and after that, I do plan on, if I do have single families, I'm going to try to target them to vacation rental markets. One, the barrier of entry of the type of person that's going to be there, and two, the cash flow is just stupendous. I mean, you can make 13 grand a month, 13, 20 grand a month on one property. That's worth it. So that is like places I may be looking at, places in Arizona, Smokies. I know it's saturated, but people are still traveling there, right? And I'm just mainly looking at markets like that are, if they're outside of vacation rental markets, they have to be markets where people are moving to, like far north Dallas and that area. People are just piling in. Oregon, Washington, California, all those people. So you always have business.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting that you point out you're going towards those markets that do have saturation. And I think it's, all the time we talk about like, look, if you're a new investor, do not start in those markets. Like, you're not going to understand the level that you have to compete at. But especially at the point in your journey that you're at, it makes sense for you to enter those markets because you've got that experience, right? You've got the capital, you've got the experience, you've got the support system behind you to be able to like compete in that 95th percentile, even though it's already saturated. So I think that's smart.
Yeah.
Pro tip for the Smokies, my husband went there. There was a bear right outside. So just prep your
Oh yeah, I
guests
ain't going.
that there's going to be bears outside of the
Yeah,
house.
I seen a whole bear break into somebody's car while she was loading up her stuff, and she opened the door and a bear was
Yeah.
there. She took off. Yeah, Smokey's
Yeah,
in
they
the
were
place.
in their hot tub. They were sitting in the hot tub at their Airbnb, and a bear just like walked around the house. And they were like,
Oh
they all just
Lord.
slowly got out of the hot tub and went back inside.
Yeah,
And they went on 2 hikes and saw bears on every hike. They're
yeah, I ain't hiking in
one
the
thing to
Smokies.
warn about a new market.
I'm not hiking in the Smokies, man. I'm good on that. Like, I don't even know why people go hike in places where there are bears. I'm good on that. Yeah,
It's me. I'm the person that does it.
yeah, I'm good on that.
You just gotta scare them away, Micah. And they
Nah,
run
ain't no
from you.
Just
scaring
get
nothing
real
away.
big.
What are the
I'll be in the car. I'm out. I'll holler at y'all.
I'll be with you. I don't like hikes anyways. They're always longer than everybody tells you they're gonna be.
Yeah,
Emily, every time we go on a
right there.
trip, I'm like, I'm the hiker, right? I love hiking. And Emily's always like, seriously, another one of these.
Because they'll be like, hey, it's a 3 hour hike, and then you're hiking for 6 to 8 hours. And I'm like, you liars. It is not a 3 hour hike. This took so long. So I refuse. Now I'm like, I'll stay at the Airbnb and chill. I'll see you guys when you're done with your
Yeah.
hike.
So, when you think about growing your portfolio for the both of you, are you focused on investing in things where you are the sole owner on them, or are you looking at doubling down on partnerships and partnering with the right people?
I'm cool with trying the partnership route, and yeah, because I know you're doing some cool things with partnerships. I've done a couple already, and they're working out pretty good. Um, Oh, well, go back to your question on the where we're expanding to. I had a question for you because I know we have a client that has a place in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and holy crap, they're doing amazing. And I don't know anything about the Grand Rapids market. I know that they're going through their short-term rental kind of regulation struggle right now. So the place that they actually got to do Airbnb short-term rentals is now they have to do 30 days plus whatever. But at 30 days plus, oh my God, they're making great money. I'm like, is there a huge demand for short-term rentals, midterm rentals in Grand Rapids?
Yeah, I would say so. There's a lot that happens. There's like concerts and sporting events, and a lot of people are moving to the Grand Rapids area. It's like a smaller Fort Worth. That's like what we always compare it to. But they are really particular about their short term rental regulations right now. And Michigan's going through a whole process of like passing a bill to make it to where the whole state's the same. But if you're in the outskirts of Grand Rapids, like if you're not actually in the Grand Rapids limits, you can. So like I'm in Plainfield Township, so I think technically I could here, but you can't if you're in Grand Rapids. And I personally think so there's two really major families in the city, and one of them owns a major hotel that's in downtown, and they're very involved in the decision making, and so
Mm,
they don't want to take their business away.
hmm.
So I think that that has stuff to do with it, but we're crossing our fingers that the regulation gets passed because there is a condo complex in downtown Grand Rapids that I've been obsessed with my entire life, and my dream is to own a place there and just be able to go there whenever I want, and it's perfect. It's in the perfect location. So cross your
Well,
fingers that
it'll do
the
good as a
regulations
midterm. We
change,
know
guys.
that for sure. So yeah, don't be afraid to
Yeah.
buy it. Talk to Theron, our buddy Theron. He's the one fighting out with all these cities. He saved Detroit, so he's right down the way, right? And not too far. I don't know how far it is. I don't know. So here's Detroit, and I don't know how y'all do the hand thing.
I appreciate the effort.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about 2.5-ish
Yeah,
hours
we
to
Okay.
will
Grand
be
Rapids.
first in line to invest in Grand Rapids when it's 100% legal. I mean, I think you're right. We probably could invest in it right now, just run it as a midterm and then kind of wait for that regulation to change. And I mean, that regulation has been being worked on being changed for like 3 or 4 years now. And this is the third time it's come up, but it looks like it's optimistically passing this time around. But I'm sure that we'll see a big rush of people investing in Grand Rapids because, I mean, Detroit's a great investment, or a relatively good investment at that. And I think Grand Rapids for us, just because we're even more familiar with it, it's even closer to home. And the competition levels are so low because it's been illegal for so long that we would be hopping all over that the second it becomes legal.
They got some beautiful skyrise units there that are for cheap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Michigan's an interesting market in general too because the house that I just bought is in northern Michigan, and I called the city and I was like, "Hey, do you guys allow short-term rentals?" There are some there, but like that doesn't say anything.
Mhm.
So I call and they're like, "Yes, absolutely. We have a list of what we require, and I'm going to send you this list and I'll come and inspect your place." And like because in northern Michigan, like some of these cities just need tourism in that way, so
Mhm.
they're like, yes, please, we absolutely allow it. And then Grand Rapids is like, no, absolutely not. So it's really funny, like in the same state, actually, really not that far apart. They're so very different. So I'm ready for them to all be the same.
At least they go and check out your place because it's funny because I there was some
Mm-hmm.
some that popped up in Galveston, Galveston, Texas beach whatever community, and I called actually talked to the lady that's in charge of permitting. I was like, oh, so how do I get a permit there if I'm going to do Airbnbs. And she's like, you just sign here. Just I sent you a form. You just sign there. You plug in to pay your taxes, and that's it. And I was like, okay, so when do y'all come out and inspect it? Oh, we don't go inspect it. That's all. You just sign up online. You got your permit. It's like, oh, that's a little too easy, man.
Yeah.
So that I'm thinking it's already I don't know, saturated there. And I know why, because it's easy to get a permit. They don't care. They just want
Yeah.
more people to go there.
Yeah, literally all three of the properties now that we have in Michigan, Cadillac, Hale, and Invitely, all of them, they don't have any regulation. I called the city and they're like,
Mm.
run it. I'm like, oh,
Oh
okay,
wow.
here we go.
Yeah, it was nice. The guy was like, I just have a list of everything that's required, and you, as long as you have all of this, I'll come look, I'll check you off, and you'll have your permit. And I was like,
Yeah.
sick.
Hey.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Really
Nice.
the only amount of confidence that like we have towards these places that have no regulation at all is that like if we look at the regulation that's come up in other cities here in Michigan, it's almost been exactly the same everywhere. It's like either you get grandfathered in or they make it to where like residential areas have a little bit of regulation, but we'll see. I mean, I'm hopeful that the bill will pass in Michigan where it'll all be just like Arizona where, they have one law that covers the entire state and that, different townships don't
Mm,
get the opportunity to create their own laws. So we'll see.
That's
beautiful.
dope.
Yeah.
Love that.
Well, guys, I think we're out of questions for you today. We are at time and we don't want to keep you any longer, but before we hop off here, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you and connect with you?
You can find me at argestrentals.com, ARGEST rentals.com. And that's where you can, if you need management, we do management, we do remote management. We were all over Texas. We have, like I said, Grand Rapids, Michigan, and we're going into Gulf Shores, Alabama, thanks to Sarah. Hopefully that'll be up soon and hook you up, Sarah. Don't worry. Don't worry. Chill out. And then so yeah, just find it argestrentals.com, liveletthrive.com, live let thrive, and that's our podcast. We've been doing it for a long time now. So if you have a compelling story, hop on our podcast and talk to us and tell us all about it. And what about you, Myka? Where can they find you?
Find us on IG, liveletthrive.com. Check out the YouTube, Live Let Thrive, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. And I'm currently buying houses. So if you have any piece of shit houses, family members with piece of shit houses, family members that are hoarders, hit me up. I'll take a look at it anywhere. I don't care if it's wherever it is, but mainly in Texas. But yeah, those family members that are hoarders, I love their houses. So I'll definitely buy them and find them some help.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys
Yes.
so much for joining us again. It's always good catching up with you guys. And for our listeners, if you enjoy our podcast, I guarantee you'll enjoy theirs. We literally have consumed almost all of their content, and that is how we got started. So, highly, highly recommend. As always, you know that we use their management as well. So, if you guys are looking for management, they have our double, triple stamp of approval. And we will catch y'all next time. Bye, guys.
Bye bye.
Bye.